Donald Trump isn't just covering up for himself with his refusal to release the Epstein files. He is covering up for anyone who could make him look bad, and that includes his wife, at least contractually, Melania Trump, who just got caught with her own Epstein connection because apparently Pam Bondi wants to show us just how terrible she is at covering up these files. We are going to get into this connection, why it is public, why it is pertinent to this moment right now, and why $40 million is attached to it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the Melania of it all, I want to start where Donald Trump's stooges did this morning, Todd Blanche announcing that he was perfectly within his rights to redact all of the Epstein files mentioning Donald Trump. And of course, Thomas Massie slammed him for that on TV.
Congressman Massie, I saw in a video that you posted, you had a very specific benchmark of success here. You said there are at least 20 men accused of sex crimes known to the FBI. How do you know that number, and do you know those names?
Yeah, the survivors' lawyers have told me those numbers, and they've described their professions in general, but they've only given me one of those names, and I mentioned that in a congressional hearing, Jess Staley. So I searched these documents. I didn't see Jess Staley's name, nor did I see 19 other names. And here's why we shouldn't be optimistic that Blanche or Bondi are going to release these things. They sent a 6-page memo to Congress and said they cited pre-existing laws as reasons that they weren't going to follow our law. For instance, our law requires them to release information regardless of embarrassment, but they are trying to say that a previous law prevails when it doesn't. Common sense says it doesn't. The Privacy Act doesn't protect them from that. And then also, as Rose said, internal communications, they're using a FOIA standard that doesn't apply because our law already says they have to give us internal communications.
In terms of the gentleman there you referenced as accused, I mean, being in the document doesn't necessarily prove criminal behavior, right? And in terms of the redactions, what the Deputy Attorney General said is that they were abiding by your law, and also a judge in New York had ordered them to listen to victims. So they're claiming that information that they had initially even published Friday, they had to pull down because they were trying to protect victims. You don't sound convinced that they are abiding by this intent.
No, they are not abiding, and all 3 judges who released the grand jury material said that our law trumps the prior law. That's just common sense, Law School 101. Yet Todd Blanche is using a different theory that wouldn't survive first contact with any court, which is he's trying to say that prior laws override our law. That's not the way this works.
Okay.
Massie is right. The legal framework, if you can even call it that Blanche is operating under, doesn't make any sense at all. It is not rational, it is not coherent, and honestly, it gives us more reason to believe that the photos of Donald Trump that were released in this batch of pseudo-Epstein files were him pictured with victims. If you are claiming that the only reason that you redacted photos, videos, emails, evidence, documentation, court testimony was to protect victims, then posting a photo of Donald Trump with young women and taking it down suggests that the young women he was with were victims. It could have been of Epstein's crimes. It certainly could have been of Trump's as well. But this is not just Republicans, this is not just Democrats slamming this. Republicans continue to as well. And what Rand Paul said right here, it's a lot to do with what Melania just got caught in.
Files. Your Kentucky colleague Thomas Massie obviously was the force that forced this release. He is saying that the Attorney General is violating the law and could in fact eventually be prosecuted for doing so. What's your reaction to this partial release?
I've supported transparency on the Epstein files from the beginning. I've voted repeatedly to release them. I think it's a good idea. I think that trust in government is at a low ebb, and that people need to trust that justice is the same whether you're rich or poor. And people tend to believe that some rich people got off scot-free in the Epstein case, in the Epstein files. So I think it all should be released.
It is a coast-to-coast cover-up. That is what we are seeing right now under this Trump administration. They are just looking out for anyone who has a connection to Epstein that could implicate Trump. Well, we got to remember that Donald Trump isn't just covering up photos of himself, but anyone with deeper connections to him or his administration that could then potentially be subpoenaed, go on the record, or hurt Donald Trump in any way. And that extends to Melania. But she wasn't protected in this latest batch of files released. As this article details right here. Disgraced Melania director spotted in Epstein files. Filmmaker Brett Ratner has been spotted in one of the thousands of Epstein files released by the Department of Justice on Friday. In the image, Ratner can be seen clutching the waist of the late French model scout who was accused of supplying girls to Jeffrey Epstein and others. The 56-year-old director of the Rush Hour franchise is one of the many celebrities, politicians, and public figures to appear in the latest round of Epstein documents released by Donald Trump's DOJ. Famous faces, of course, included Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Mick Jagger, and Michael Jackson. Inclusion in the files does not suggest or prove that any crimes have been committed. Many of these individuals identified have previously denied any wrongdoing. Ratner himself has kept a low public profile since 2017, when 6 women accused him of several crimes. However, Ratner is set for his first directorial credit since 2014 with Amazon's $40 million documentary about Melania Trump, which is due in theaters in January of next year. Ratner is reported to have shadowed Melania in early 2024, capturing footage of her return to the White House, which will form the basis of the Melania film. The choice of director has prompted considerable controversy, something that The View host Alyssa Farah Griffin weighed in on following the release of the trailer. I wouldn't, if I was a staffer, put the First Lady in the position of working with someone who had that history, Griffin said. I just think it's a distraction from it. That, to me, makes me a little on the cusp of if I want to watch the work, why would you want to see that movie? Co-host Joy Behar quite quipped that she thought Ratner was the perfect choice for such a film. If he had somebody directed who didn't have a record in some kind of sexual assault, it would be a surprise, she said. I mean, this tracks. Of course it tracks. Donald Trump loves to surround himself with criminals, especially when he's engaging in corruption. And nobody wants to see the Melania movie or Melania documentary. I'm going to be at Marty Supreme Christmas Day. I don't really think I'm going to be jonesing for the theatrical release of the Melania documentary. But the reason that this movie was able to command $40 million from Jeff Bezos is because he knows that that is the easiest way to get his way with Donald Trump, is to write his wife a big check and to allow the sexual assaulter director to also get a big payday. And who is he cozied up with? Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone that Donald Trump brings into his circle is a criminal, is corrupt, was involved with Epstein, and now it is happening with Melania, who herself reportedly was involved with Epstein maybe before even Donald Trump was. And of course, we know that humiliates him and horrifies him and angers him, but it's clearly not enough to stop him from having another Epstein-associated director work with his wife. That is this administration. It is people who flew on Epstein's plane, who went to his parties. Hell, RFK Jr. was essentially bragging about it. He's like, well, I did take a lot of trips. You remember that clip of him on Jesse Waters and Jesse saying, well, you never really hung out with Epstein. He's like, well, actually, I hang out with him all the time. Jesse's like, oh, shit. Well, okay. But Donald Trump doesn't care. In fact, they're happy to have these people surround him because it's just more protection. Is it a surprise that the guy who is hanging out with Epstein is now getting his first big opportunity to get back to work from Donald Trump? The guy who always hung out with Epstein? The Rush Hour connection is also interesting, considering that seems to be one of Donald Trump's favorite films. I personally haven't checked it out. I don't think I want to at this point. But yeah, of course they're going to surround themselves with people who are close to Epstein. It gives Donald Trump that little bubble. It's what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, that Donald Trump is just as much trying to protect people closely attached to Epstein, his associates, as much as he is himself. Because he knows when those dominoes start to fall, when those people start to talk, more comes out. More that might not even be in these Epstein files. Just think about what the Epstein estate has provided us. That is the type of information that would come from associates being made public. That is what Donald Trump is terrified of. That's what Democrats are continuing to push for. Jamie Raskin certainly is, and he made it clear right here.
Donald Trump is passing out pardons like Christmas cookies right now. So if you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. At this point, given how much they've gone along as accomplices in this cover-up, they figure they're better off just doing whatever Donald Trump tells them to do, so that there might be, a pardon waiting somewhere over the rainbow for them. So I think, that they're going to continue to stick around. Others like Bongino are like members of a religious cult who wake up on the basement floor one day and say to themselves, somewhere I took a wrong turn, and now look where my life is, and they're trying to get out as quickly as they can.
So someone who's looking at a pardon or a commutation very soon is Ghislaine Maxwell. She seems to be the most kinetic character in this whole thing. She's moving forward with trying to get better treatment than she's already got by being moved to a sort of a prison camp. What do you make of how that situation fits into all of this?
Well, this is really the only thing about the whole affair that is remotely transparent, because we can see exactly what's going on. She got subpoenaed on one day by the House Oversight Committee, and the very next day, she hears from Todd Blanche, who had been Donald Trump's private criminal defense lawyer, who had gone over to Department of Justice, who was conveniently assigned to be overseeing all this stuff as the number 2 person there. He goes to see Ghislaine Maxwell. And not to try to find out who are the other co-conspirators, who are the other accomplices, what crimes have yet to come to light that we should be involved in. No, he goes simply to find out what will she say about Donald Trump, and pronouncing himself satisfied. And remember, he got rid of the real lawyers in the case, and but pronouncing himself satisfied with her answers, then suddenly she gets this very sweetheart deal where she goes off to this minimum security camp, and even there is given the 5-star Trump hotel treatment with room service and ability to work out whenever she wants, guests who can come and bring computers. The warden is sending messages back and forth to the people she wants to correspond with. It's unbelievable. And they don't even deny that. They just fire the people who they think brought this forward as whistleblowers.
We are not going to slow down the push for a broader release of these files. And additionally, I think it's important to remember that Democrats are also keeping up the pressure on the Epstein estate and anyone with close connections to Jeffrey Epstein. That includes the financial institutions that, in their own words, quite literally sanitized his bank records. It's not just the Epstein files that we need to be after. It's what's also not in them, but gives us more information. And we're going to be talking about that on the show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.